immediately changes as he reads it. Qingwu asks what is written there, and he throws the scroll so that everyone can see it. When they read it, everyone is shocked. Qingwu is stunned when she realizes that it is a divorce letter. The people around are confused, asking who would send such a thing and, more importantly, to whom that letter was addressed. Qingwu, in disbelief, wonders whether such a thing is possible, saying that it is impossible for anyone to dare do that to her. The patriarch becomes furious, saying that this is absurd, questioning who had the audacity to send a divorce letter on the most important day of the Chen family, and demands that the person responsible appear, swearing to punish them severely. Another scroll appears indicating that Chen Qingwu was originally the young lady of a family of immortal emperors. The people then realize that it is indeed a divorce letter addressed to her. Qingwu, furious and incredulous, questions who would dare divorce her. Yuntian also erupts in anger, calling it extreme audacity and demanding to know who is behind it. The patriarch reveals that the name at the end of the letter is Lycan. Yuntian reacts with a disdain, saying that useless trash was thrown into the great abyss and should have turned to dust long ago. Qingwu, still in shock, connects the events, recalling the destruction of the branch and the rescue of Seer, and begins to suspect that he may not be dead. Yuntian rejects the idea, declaring that if someone like him managed to come out of the great abyss, he himself would call him father. At that moment, a voice echoes from inside the boat, saying that he does not have such an unfilial son. Yuntian turns immediately, demanding to know who spoke. Then the protagonist appears, revealing himself to be alive. Yuntian is utterly shocked, saying that it is impossible, while Qingwu, equally stunned, asks how he can still be alive. The patriarch watches the situation and asks whether what stands before him is real or an illusion. Lycan replies that back then, when the Chen family was facing a crisis of extermination, it was the Lai family that saved them from danger, but in return they received ingratitude, betrayal, and every kind of cruelty, and that now the time has come to settle the accounts. The people around murmur, recognizing that he truly is the young master of the Li family, and wonder how he managed to survive and escape the great abyss. Qingwu, still disbelieving, asks if it is really him. The protagonist then asks whether she liked the engagement gift he sent that day. The patriarch, furious, declares that whether he is real or not, alive or dead, if he dares cause trouble for his family, he will be torn to pieces. An elder steps forward with contempt, saying that he is nothing but a useless waste and that there is no reason for such commotion. The patriarch orders them to capture him alive, stating that he will make him pay an extremely painful price. The elder approaches confidently, but before he can even act, Lycan appears in front of him and grabs him by the neck, beginning to squeeze. The elder loses his breath and begs to be released, but the protagonist drags him to the edge of the flying boat and throws him from a brutal height, making him fall directly onto the coffin. The patriarch, shocked, states that that man was a peak expert of the Second Realm and questions how he could have been defeated so easily. Yuntian then asks Qingwu if she is certain that this is really Lycan, and she confirms that it is, saying that despite the change in his demeanor, there is no doubt that he is the young master of the Lai family. Yuntian concludes that the destruction of the Chaos Sacred Land Branch was probably his doing as well. Lycan responds coldly, saying that it is only a mere branch and that sooner or later he will destroy the entire Chaos Sacred Land. Enraged, Yuntian asks how he dares speak with such arrogance and orders his men to capture him in the name of the Holy Sun. The disciples step forward enthusiastically, declaring their loyalty to the Chaos Sacred Land and the Holy Sun. The protagonist then states that those who have nothing to do with this matter may still withdraw, otherwise they will be slaughtered without mercy. The people react with indignation, asking who he thinks he is to threaten them. Lycan then declares that no one will leave that place. The warriors charge at him confidently, saying that they will capture him and uncover his secret. The protagonist orders the attack, and his creatures move instantly, killing one enemy before he can even react, while another creature bites a warrior's neck until he dies. The creatures continue advancing, slaughtering everyone in their path. The patriarch sees the situation and shouts that they are demons, asking how they managed to get in there, ordering that they all be killed. One of the creatures activates a powerful formation, declaring that the entire Chen family will be refined. Intense light spread and the disciples panic, realizing that it is a deadly formation. The patriarch, alarmed, asks when that had been prepared. Lycan answers that in the past, during his own wedding, the Chen family set up a similar ambush, catching his family by surprise and causing a massacre, and that now he is only returning the same fate. Qingwu realizes that everything had been planned in advance as revenge. Yuntian, despising him, says that he is nothing but an ant, and that no matter how much he schemes, he will not escape death. The patriarch charges with a powerful punch, ordering him to take the blow. The protagonist had already been waiting with his fist prepared, and when the strikes collide, an enormous pressure spreads, resulting in the patriarch's arm being torn off. He falls to the ground screaming in pain. Qingwu runs to him in concern, unable to comprehend Lycan's strength, and suggests that they retreat to the Chaos Sacred Land and bring reinforcements. Yuntian rejects the idea, declaring that brat ruined his ceremony and humiliated him publicly with a divorce letter, which is an unacceptable affront and that he himself must kill him there. Qingwu decides to fight at his side, but Yuntian says that she can merely watch, because he alone is enough to crush Lycan with a single blow. He charges, but before he can even get close, he is struck and sent flying, suffering serious injuries. Qingwu is shocked. Yuntian rises coughing, saying it was only carelessness and that no one needs to mention it. He charges again with his fist clenched, but the protagonist intercepts him, grabs his face, twists his neck, and slams him to the ground. Qingwu runs to him and asks if he is all right. The patriarch, still in shock, states that the Holy Sun is no match for that beast even in a single exchange. Irritated, Yuntian gets up and says that he dared to strike him in the face, something unforgivable. The pressure around them intensifies greatly, and Yuntian finally draws his sword. Qingwu, surprised, recognizes that it is a sacred artifact. The patriarch becomes excited when he sees the weapon, and states that with a sacred artifact in hand, that brat will surely be subdued. Yuntian declares that at last that useless trash is worthy of forcing him to use a sacred artifact of the Chaos Sacred Land to cut off his head. Lycan looks at it with disdain and questions this so-called sacred artifact. Qingwu approaches and proposes that they attack together. In the same instant, Yuntian charges with his sword while Qingwu lashes out with her whip wrapped in spiritual power, binding the protagonist's body. She says that he is immobilized, and Yuntian uses the opening to rush forward with everything he has, driving the sword into his body and celebrating, saying that he finally struck him. Yet the protagonist remains unharmed and coldly comments that he even looks happy when he smiles. Yuntian is confused, and Lycan calls him an idiot. Qingwu realizes it first and states that the sacred artifact failed to pierce his body. Yuntian is horrified and cannot believe it, saying that even meteoric iron would be pierced by that weapon, and asks how a fleshly body could resist it. Even so, he refuses to accept it and attacks again. The protagonist breaks free from the whip through brute force alone, making Qingwu realize that he shattered the void chains without using any technique. Yuntian continues charging in desperation, but suddenly his sacred artifact breaks apart. He is stunned, unable to understand how such a thing is possible. Lycan then comments that it has been a long time since he last tasted a sacred artifact. A strange energy moves as he extends his hand, and the fragments of the weapon are absorbed directly into his body. The patriarch, in shock, asks what he is doing, and Qingwu says that this is something without precedent. A surreal aura erupts around him, accompanied by a heavy sound, and the pressure rises drastically. The protagonist says that the long-awaited increase in strength truly came from the sacred artifact offered by the Holy Sun. Yuntian, terrified, asks what kind of monster he is. Lycan then calls them an adulterous man and woman, and says that the time has come to act. He charges forward and strikes them with a devastating impact, making both of them spit blood. Qingwu senses the danger and says they need to flee immediately. Yuntian agrees, saying that when he returns to the sacred land, he will tear him to pieces. Lycan calls him naive and pursues them at frightening speed. Qingwu realizes that he is catching up rapidly and says that this is very bad. Yuntian panics and asks what they should do. Qingwu decides that he must flee first while she holds the enemy back. Yuntian is moved, believing her, and promises that he will bring reinforcements to save her. The protagonist watches coldly and says that 8 years have passed and they are still just as weak. Yuntian starts to flee, but suddenly stops when he feels his foot being caught. Looking back, he sees Qingwu holding him with the whip and saying that he is going the wrong way. He curses her in disbelief, asking how she dares do that. Qingwu pulls him in, strikes him, and coldly tells him to die in peace, claiming that she will avenge him. Yuntian is completely stunned. Lycan then hits him with a devastating blow, causing an explosion. Yuntian begs for his life, saying he will accept any condition. The protagonist stares at him, pressing his leg beneath his foot until he screams in pain. Meanwhile, Qingwu activates a magic circle and calculates that only 10 breaths remain before the teleportation matrix is complete, hoping that the Holy Sun can delay the enemy. Lycan watches and comments that she is even crueler than he imagined, saying that the most venomous hearts belong to women, since she was capable of sacrificing the Holy Sun himself to save herself. He moves toward her. Qingwu tries to negotiate, saying that perhaps they can talk and even cooperate, while realizing that he is already too close and beginning to fear that he is a true monster. Lycan states that trying to buy time is useless. Qingwu realizes that she will not be able to escape. The protagonist advances with his fist clenched, but she notices her father standing in front of her. The patriarch, with his arm already regenerated, faces the blow and says that he did not want this, that the Chen family was about to become great, asking her to rebuild the family. In the next instant, he is destroyed. Qingwu escapes, swearing that they will meet again. Lycan smiles coldly and says that killing her now would be too easy, preferring to make her experience despair little by little. Then he returns to the boat. The creatures report that everyone has been eliminated and that all the resources of the Chen family have already been sent to Zier so that she can continue cultivating. Lycan orders the retreat and the flying boat departs. In another place, the ninth young lady observes from afar and comments that it was wise not to go to the Chen family because just like in the Deep Fire sect, no one survived, concluding that that boy is becoming more and more valuable. Elsewhere, Qingwu appears kneeling, filled with guilt, saying that if the Holy Sun had not tried to save her, he would not have died, and asks the Sacred Land to send powerful experts to avenge him. The Holy Lord asks whether she is certain that it was Lycan, the young master of the family of immortal emperors. Qingwu confirms that it was, stating that she saw with her own eyes years ago as he was thrown into the great abyss, and that she never imagined he would return after 8 years. The Holy Lord then orders the Grand Elder to block all information, forbidding any news of the return of the young master of the Li family from spreading. The Grand Elder replies that he understands. Qingwu, still kneeling, asks what he is, and the Holy Lord replies that the Great Abyss has always been the most mysterious place on that continent, where no one has ever returned alive, and that the immortal Emperor Wuji once stated that the Great Abyss holds the greatest secret in the world. The fact that Lycan managed to shatter a sacred artifact with his own body shows that he obtained an extraordinary opportunity within the Great Abyss, and also reveals that the place offers immense benefits. Qingwu asks if the Lord intends to capture him and interrogate him about the Great Abyss, and the Holy Lord replies that not only him, but if the 3 immortal sects and other sacred lands were to discover this, all of them would try to capture him. So this matter must not leak under any circumstances, and he must ensure that Lycan is captured alive. Qingwu says not to worry, as she will personally bring him back to the sacred land of chaos. On the boat, the protagonist looks at his own hand, turned into stone, and comments that he did not expect the sacred artifact of the sacred land of chaos to evolve his physique so much, to the point that one of his hands turned into metal and stone. Zier comments about his hand, and Lycan says it is fine and that he will recover in a few days. Not understanding, Zier asks how that is possible and what is happening, and the creature replies that it is related to the cultivation path the young master chose to follow. The protagonist calls him talkative, and the creature says it will not disturb them, but Zier asks him to stay and explain what is going on. The old demon returns, and Lycan explains that his sister knows his natural talent is not the best, so in order to become stronger quickly, he walked a new cultivation path in the Great Abyss, using his own body as a furnace, as an embryo, and as a vessel, refining himself. Zier asks if that means he is improving himself in this way, if his body can absorb fragments of sacred artifacts, and if having his arm turned into metal and stone means he's forging himself into a weapon. The protagonist says she can understand it that way, since in the end his physique will become stronger and stronger, indestructible, and unbreakable. Zier asks what the price is and says he might end up becoming a humanoid weapon without emotions or thoughts. Lycan looks away and Zier hugs him, saying she does not want to see him like that and does not want to lose him again. The protagonist says it is not as serious as it seems, that a humanoid weapon is not easy to cultivate, it is a long process, and he is already looking for a solution. A pouch floats closer and Lycan finds it strange to see Miss Zai's brocade pouch come out on its own. A paper falls and the protagonist says the first task has already been completed, so it seems she wants him to do the second one. Lycan picks up the paper and the old demon asks what she wants him to do this time. The protagonist replies that she wants him to find the Medicine Emperor. The old demon comments that the Medicine Emperor is an extraordinary figure who lived for several thousand years, and that he had heard of his reputation even before being cast into the burial abyss, but he has always lived in seclusion and no one knows where he is. Lycan notices there is an address in the Valley of Blazing Fire. Zier says that the Valley of Blazing Fire is the sacred land of the Blazing Fire sect. The protagonist says that since they are going there, they also cannot let the Blazing Fire sect get away. Zier warns that the Blazing Fire sect is one of the 12 great sects of the world and possesses countless powerful practitioners, so he should not act rashly. Lycan places his hand on her head and tells her not to worry because he is no longer the same, and besides seeking revenge, they also need to recover the items from the imperial tomb of that time, as this is an ancestral instruction left by their forefather, and the very existence of the family is tied to protecting that tomb. Back then, the three immortal sects dominated the division of the imperial tomb, and the blazing fire sect should not have obtained anything, so they must recover it. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, and the protagonist asks what is happening. A maid flies over and says that people below are attacking the spirit boat without knowing its limits. A vine is launched, Lycan grabs it and shatters it into pieces. More vines advance, and the protagonist manages to grab two at the same time until one of them heads toward his sister. Lycan senses the danger and says, "This is not good," and the old demon steps forward, taking the attack to protect her. Zir becomes worried, and the old demon comments on the aura of that vine as it also wraps around the boat. Zir tells them to save him quickly, and the protagonist tells her not to worry because the old demon will not lose his life. Zir insists, saying his heart has been pierced, but the old demon states that he himself has no heart, and that, as the young master said, he will not die. So Zir questions how he can be someone without a heart. Lycan explains that the old demon's heart was torn out before he was thrown into the great abyss, and Zir, shocked, asks who could have done something so cruel. At that moment, other creatures jump onto the boat and say they will go down and eliminate everyone, as they are already tired of living. The protagonist asks who will go first, and the old demon replies that those creatures come from the evil cloud cave, as he recognizes the aura of the vines very well. The people below observe the boat, and one of them with blue hair releases vines around the vessel trying to pull it down. The disciples comment that he has excellent resources, that his natal demonic vine has already reached perfection, and that he is directly dragging the spirit boat down, saying that only such a magnificent boat is worthy of him. The boat crashes to the ground, and the disciples declare that they are from the evil cloud cave and that the spirit boat is now under their control. The old demon steps forward and says to let him handle it. He jumps to the ground, and a disciple asks why an old fool is coming down. The old demon asks which generation of disciples of the evil cloud cave he belongs to, and the blue-haired disciple retorts that he should not be asking that, ordering everyone on the spirit boat to come down. The old demon strikes him and sends him flying into the ground. The blue-haired disciple reacts by releasing vines and wrapping around his body, saying he thought he had some skill, but it was easy to capture him. The other disciples say to drain him to the last drop, and that if he dares resist the evil cloud cave, nothing will remain of his corpse. The blue-haired disciple tells him to learn his lesson in the next life and not provoke them again. The old demon smiles, and the disciple finds it strange. The old demon asks if he still does not understand and says, now it is his turn. The old man begins releasing energy through the vines, and the blue-haired disciple screams for someone to save him quickly. The other disciples rush in, but the old demon breaks the vines around his own body and uses them to attack everyone, knocking them to the ground. The blue-haired disciple, frightened, asks if he can really use the natal demonic vine and who he is. The old demon says that is a good question, and the disciple kneels on the ground begging for mercy. The old demon orders him to answer his previous question, so the disciple says he is a 9th-generation disciple of the evil cloud cave. The old demon comments that they are already at the 9th generation and that many years have indeed passed, then asks if the 2nd-generation ancestor is still alive. The disciple questions it, and the blue-haired one replies that it is said the 2nd-generation ancestor died long ago in an accident, and after that the cave prospered under the 3rd-generation ancestor. The old demon thinks that makes sense, since his heart was torn out back then, and wonders how they could not have been affected. The blue-haired disciple then asks who he really is, why he can absorb his original demonic energy and still use the unique natal demonic vine of the evil cloud cave, and what his relationship with the sect is. The old demon replies that this is another good question and says that if not for that incident, he himself would have become the 3rd-generation ancestor of the evil cloud cave. The blue-haired disciple is shocked and asks if he is really the 3rd-generation ancestor and how that is possible. The old demon then shows an item and asks if he still does not believe. The disciple, surprised, says that is the evil cloud token, and that there are rumors that this item was lost by the 3rd-generation ancestor, so he questions how it can be in his hands. The old demon, irritated, says that their so-called 3rd-generation ancestor was nothing more than a scoundrel back then. The disciple tries to understand what is happening and whether that man really knows the 3rd-generation ancestor. The old demon then asks his master for permission to be away for a few days. The protagonist replies that he does not need to say anything more and can simply go and do what he needs. The old demon thanks him and says that for so many years at the bottom of the great abyss, he has always thought of this moment, as he wants to confront that person face to face, and then asks the blue-haired disciple to take him back to the evil cloud cave. Lycan calls out to him and asks where he is going, saying he can use the spirit boat. The old demon does not understand, and the protagonist explains that he told him to go resolve it, but not alone, as he will go with him. Already at the evil cloud cave, the disciple points to the gorge ahead and says, "That is the entrance," warning him to think carefully, because ever since the third-generation ancestor obtained the true blood of the immortal demon, the cave has developed rapidly, and its strength is already close to that of the 12 great sects, so there is still time to retreat. The creature strikes him and tells him to stop talking nonsense, demanding that he say how to enter. The disciple replies that he cannot because the demonic vines at the entrance are connected to the demonic tower, and the energy that continuously flows forms an extremely strong defensive gate. The old demon steps forward and the disciple insists it is useless, saying that only a high-level elder can open it as it is just the first line of defense. The old demon releases his magic and the vines open. The disciple is indignant and asks how he can control the vines connected to the demonic tower. The protagonist moves forward and tells them to enter. Minutes later, they arrive at another gate, and the disciple comments that the gate was forged from fragments of the Zhuanwu meteorite, and that even if the great sects attacked, they would not be able to open it. The old man then tries to strike the gate, but realizes there is no way for him to open it, suggesting that maybe the giant demon can. The hidden demon then calls the giant demon, who promptly appears with a stern expression. One of the demons comments that the guy is sleepy again, and the others agree, saying he is always sleepy and warning that now it is the big guy's turn. With that, he begins to approach the gate, and with each step, he starts to grow even larger. Frightened by that, the disciple asks who the hell those guys are, since they are the most demonic beings he has ever seen. The giant then throws a punch with all his strength at the gate, which immediately begins to crack and give in before him. At that moment, everyone is shocked, questioning whether the giant really managed to break that wall with a single punch and saying they should have told him not to use so much force. Watching the scene, the disciples become increasingly stunned, unable to believe what is happening. They cannot believe that with just one punch, that demon almost made the entire mountain collapse. However, the giant, staring straight ahead, notices that there is another gate beyond the one he broke, and disappointed, says he failed to break it. The winged beast then says that gate is truly strange, because knowing the strength of the giant's punch, it should have been obliterated even if it was made from that meteorite. Then one of the disciples intervenes, saying that if it were a normal gate, the giant would indeed have destroyed it. However, he explains that the gate is connected to the demonic tower of the demonic cave, and that the tower is the source of all the power in the cave. Therefore, he is fighting against the entire demonic tower, and once again says he had already warned them to give up, because they will not be able to advance. However, to everyone's surprise, a small explosion occurs in the gate, and the disciple is shocked to see that the protagonist, with just his fists, knocked down that ancient gate. He becomes indignant, asking how that happened, but the protagonist simply tells everyone to enter. Enraged by that, the disciple asks if he is a monster, and one of the demons explains that actually he is not. He is human, and the monsters are them, and they, the monsters, are submissive to that human. Inside, a commotion begins, with everyone asking what is happening, until they encounter the protagonist group and ask if outsiders really managed to enter the evil cave. An old man then starts approaching, asking who is there. Irritated, he questions how they dare invade that place. All his subordinates begin to salute him and comment that apparently the outsiders managed to attract the attention of the sixth-generation ancestor. The ancestor then asks the invaders' names, since they do not usually kill people without names. One of the protagonist's allies then says that a mere sixth-generation ancestor is not qualified to know his name, and provokes him, telling him to summon the third-generation ancestor. That makes the ancestor even more irritated, asking what the hell he is to demand such a thing. With that, he orders his subordinates to eliminate everyone there, and immediately they all charge at the protagonist group. However, Lycan remains calm and says the cave will be useful in the future, asking his allies to try to kill as few people as possible. The demoness, smiling, says she will carry out the order, and the enemies, upon seeing her, begin drooling, desiring to possess that demonic body. But she, using her powers, asks why they do not come together for a gentle embrace. Her power then begins to affect the enemies, who become enchanted, as if hypnotized. With that, they begin running toward the ancestor, who is left in shock. Thus, all the subordinates rush together, calling the ancestor Madam and asking to play with them for a while. Furious with the situation, the ancestor says he underestimated the enemy's capabilities, as he did not expect them to know how to use evil magic. With that, he begins to advance, knocking down his own subordinates, saying he will kill everyone there without mercy. However, when he attacks, the old demon defends with ease, leaving him even more shocked. The old man then manages to absorb all the energy from the ancestor's attack, surprising him once again. At that moment, the old man begins to move forward calmly and, concentrating his power, states that everything the ancestor possesses was granted by him. Suddenly, the ancestor's body begins to feel the attack, and soon, his body is completely controlled by the old demon, who pulls him down to his knees. With his head lowered, the ancestor says that all the power he had was drained in an instant, and the old man, with a smile, tells the foolish disciple to take him to the demonic tower. They quickly leave the place. After the battle, the subordinates begin carrying the ancestor, who says they must notify the fifth generation and warn that the fourth generation ancestors must come out of seclusion immediately. Afraid, he states that the evil cave has encountered an unprecedented enemy. Meanwhile, near the tower, a subordinate reports that they have arrived, explaining that that sacred ground is the source of all their power. Upon seeing the tower, the old demon becomes emotional, saying that he is finally back. However, suddenly he hears a noise on the ground, and before he can react, vines emerge and quickly bind him. Then a voice appears telling them to stop, and a man appears before them. He introduces himself as the fifth generation ancestor of the evil cave, and states that the path ahead is blocked. However, the vines that were binding the old man break, and he asks what exactly is blocked. The fifth generation then activates new vines, which begin to grow around the old demon, quickly surrounding him. However, without any effort, he passes through the vines, saying it is a waste of time. The ancestor becomes indignant at that and says he cannot believe what he is seeing, ordering the activation of the sect's grand protective formation to bombard that thief to death. That leaves the old man concerned, and in the blink of an eye, an energy begins to manifest before him, spreading across the sky around him. The protagonist's companions are impressed by that aura, questioning whether the old demon will be all right. Suddenly, all that energy begins to descend from the sky, heading directly toward the old man, causing a colossal explosion that sends rocks flying everywhere. The demons, worried, say that attack from the grand formation is no joke and hope the old man is fine. Even Lycan's sister becomes worried. However, the protagonist says that power has the same origin as the old demon, so there is nothing to worry about. The ancestor then starts laughing, saying that the consequence of challenging the evil cave is to be crushed and torn apart. However, he is shocked when he hears the old man's voice asking which of his eyes saw him being torn apart. The old man is completely intact, as if nothing had happened, leaving the ancestor utterly stunned. Without delay, the old man says now it is his turn and begins to use his power, making vines bind the ancestor, who desperately tries to command them to open. However, it is as if he were talking to a dog because nothing happens, and that leaves the ancestor afraid, as he realizes he is truly trapped by the vines of his own cave, something unbelievable. Then he begins to scream, begging the fourth generation ancestor to come out of seclusion because the cave is facing a serious risk of extermination. With that, the fourth generation ancestor promptly appears, saying that this is just a storm in a teacup. In an imposing manner, he introduces himself, saying he has not concerned himself with worldly matters for hundreds of years, and asks the invaders to state their purpose so he can grant them a quick death. The old demon then asks Guo Sheng, the fourth generation ancestor, if his tail is itching again and whether he needs another beating. At that moment, Sheng realizes that old man knows him and wonders how he knows his childhood name and whether that could be. The old man then shouts, telling him to come down immediately, and the fifth generation ancestor, irritated, calls him insolent, asking how he can be so rude to the fourth generation. In any case, Sheng approaches the old man and, shocked, realizes it really is him, and even though he looks worn out, he cannot be mistaken. Suddenly, he kneels and addresses the old demon as Uncle Tian. The fourth generation ancestor is shocked upon hearing that, as is the disciple, who now realizes that mysterious old man is truly extremely powerful. Sheng then asks his uncle if he had not died thousands of years ago, but Tian simply responds by asking where the third generation ancestor, Cao An, is. Sheng says he does not know, as the third generation has not been seen for at least 1,000 years. That leaves the old man irritated, so he asks about the second generation, who is his mother. Sheng replies that after learning of Tian's death, she also passed away shortly afterward, as she could not bear the pain of losing a son. That enrages the old man, as he now realizes even his mother suffered at the hands of Chao Anran. The fourth generation ancestor then asks his uncle what exactly happened, how he returned to life, and what he wants. Tian then begins to gather his power and says he naturally returned to reclaim what is rightfully his. The energy becomes more and more intense, and Sheng grows desperate, begging his uncle not to do that as the demonic tower is the foundation of the evil cave. Even so, he continues and begins to break the tower until a voice tells him to stop. At that moment, the old demon is attacked by an elder, and the disciples greet the third generation ancestor, saying he has always been a legendary figure. The old demon stares at him and calls him Dog Anran. The ancestor says that no matter how he survived, he should not have returned. An elder beside him recognizes him and says that person is Grand Master Montian, whose talent was unmatched in history, someone who defeated all geniuses of the demonic path and received the title of True Monarch Montian. The old demon says that back then he was born with a supreme demonic heart, whose vital energy and plasma were so intense they resembled a rainbow piercing the sun, something incomparable, and that he treated him as a brother, but he, out of envy, betrayed him, eliminated him, and took his heart, and now he has returned to tear off his head with his own hands. Everyone around is shocked, and the ancestor says it would be better for him to leave. He then releases his magic and summons a giant hand. The old demon advances and says that now the source of power of the evil cloud cave is his own demonic heart, and that the power generated by that supreme heart does not harm the true body, so he asks how he could possibly